Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome back to my Higurashi When They Cry Let's Play, and today we'll be recording episode 26. So the last episode was a lot of really good build-up. We saw Keiichi talk with Takano and Tomitake and presumably get the identity of whoever's behind these killings. I made some guesses in the last episode as to who those could be. I'm not going to repeat them again right now, at least, just because it kind of took me a while and I did it twice. And so I don't want to jam that into the intro for a third time, right, in this little time. I will give you a quick TLDR is my thoughts, at least as of last episode, and they haven't really changed too much. They should arguably move, but I don't know. I just haven't bothered messing with the rankings. I think most likely is Irie and crew. Second most likely I thought was it's independent rogue actors. Third was Takano and some kind of crew. And then last place was Oishi. Those were the candidates I was really seeing. I think the Sonozaki group is likely involved either way, right? Or the Sonozakis just in general. I think they're probably involved with whichever group is behind this. But I don't know. I definitely think it's at least very much other people too, right? I don't think it's just going to be the Sonozakis. So we saw that, but the big thing is in this episode they kind of got the ball moving with Satoko. They kind of called the welfare workers. We're gonna see, presumably in this episode, what happens with that. I don't think it's gonna be what we want, and I don't think Keiichi's gonna take that well if that happens. And so we'll see what goes on in this episode. It should be a relatively big one. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. The die of fate had been cast. Reporting to a public agency, which we'd kept being warned could instead result in something far worse for Satoko if we didn't have the evidence first. And just like that, had I failed? Had I let my emotions get the better of me in that moment? You absolutely let your emotions get the better of you. We'll see if that was some big failure or not, but maybe I should have stayed silent and left everything to Mion since she had been relatively calm. I remembered the punishment game where we had to badmouth Curry, and how me saying anything would have made it worse, and Satoko told us to leave the talking to her. Maybe it was the same thing here. I was impulsive, so maybe I should have just shut up and looked at the floor. But it was too late to lament it. The die I had thrown wouldn't be coming back into my hands. All we could do was pray for something good to happen. That is very true. He definitely let his emotions get the better of him, but like you said, at this point, there's not really much he can do about that. I think the thing that's really notable is he's already starting to put things on himself. So if things don't go well, he's absolutely going to blame it on himself, and I think he'll try to take matters into his own hands.
だから、あとは先生たちに任せよう。ね。
俺にできる精一杯。本当に俺が死に物狂いに精一杯だったら、里子を夕べのうちに連れ出して。どこかの廃屋にでも隠れてる。そうならなかったってことは、俺は精一杯じゃなかったってことだろ。
I mean, that's a dangerous way to think.
もう考えるのはよそ。圭一くん、少し根を詰めすぎだよ。
Yeah.
そんな調子じゃ、圭一くんまで倒れちゃう。
Yes, that's exactly what's gonna happen. Just leave me alone. I left her with those words and stared lazily up at the ceiling. I wondered if I'd really got Chie-sensei to understand. Would the public agency intervene and solve everything within the day? Would they acknowledge the abuse and guarantee her safety? After lunch break, our afternoon classes were mostly self-study. The teacher came back to the classroom occasionally, but then the phone in the lounge would ring and she'd have a long conversation with the caller. Everyone in class got the feeling they knew what those phone calls were about. Sensei came trotting back from the classroom.
今日は何度も電話で本当にすみませんでしたね。では今日はこれでおしまいにします。委員長、号令。起立。
It looked to me like Sensei had been wearing a dark expression ever since after lunch break. It wasn't a very relieving expression. It wouldn't be. Even if Sensei 100% understood the situation and passionately explained it to the other person, and the Child Consultation Center, as a public agency, would be the ones to decide whether to get her to safety. Sensei understood that as well as us, and that's why she looked so unreliable right now.
Kei-chan, 帰ろうよ。部活する気も起きないでしょ。
Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption.
みーちゃん、部活は誰が欠けても面白くないよ。
Rena was right. It was no fun for us if someone was missing. If the teacher's expression had shown more promise, then maybe we could have gone home more comfortably. But I couldn't let myself feel relieved. I couldn't be naive and tell myself all I can do is pray now that the dice have been cast, just in case they didn't get her to safety and decided to wait and see again. I need to take further measures. We've asked the people who could do something official already. Then there was one more place that was worth asking for help. She might laugh it off, or I might be right, and I could be endangering my own life. But I'd try.
ミオ、今日さ、お前の家に寄ってもいいか？お前、漫画かなり持ってるんだろ？少しまとめ狩りしたいんだけどな。
Interesting.
いいけど。
There was an ominous meaning behind my words, so Mion realized what I really meant right away. I wanted to talk about something alone. That's what I meant.
みーちゃん、ケイチくん、早く帰ろう。
Rena already had her shoes on and was waving to us from the schoolyard. Taking shoes off at school is such a foreign concept to me, I'm gonna be honest. I know things are just different in Japan, but it's just weird for me to think about because that was certainly never something I had to do in American schools. Like, I feel like even most American households I live in don't require me to take off my shoes, like, you know, before I get in the door or something. I've definitely been in a few, but, you know, not all of them. Mion's house was gigantic in every way imaginable. The house itself was a vaguely old-fashioned, traditional Japanese house, but the yard, I guess, or their plot of land, was enormous. It easily convinced me that they really were major landowners, with Hinamizawa under their thumb. Mion brought me through the guest room and a servant brought us some tea.
へえ、さすが金持ちだな。お手伝いさんなんか雇ってるのかよ。
私とバッチャしか住んでないもの。私だけじゃやってけないよ。
And the grandmother is probably too old to do those things. The servant left, telling us it was 5 o'clock, then withdrew with soft footsteps.
週に2、3回ね。バッチャの世話とか掃除の手伝いで来てくれてる。3、4人がローテーションで入ってくれてるんで、大抵毎日誰かがいてくれるよ。夕方までだけどね。あ、宴会とかがあって人手が欲しい時には別途に呼んでるんだけどさ。
If you had the money to hire all those people, then just take Satoko in. I glared at her as I thought that, and Mion seemed to catch on immediately.
あ、ごめん。
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, I don't think it was really a money thing.
いいよ。金の問題じゃないことは分かってるからな。
先に言っとくけど、うちはお金持ちかもしれないけど、私に自由にできるお金は全くないんだからね。
That's also very true.
そこだけは誤解しないでほしい。
It kind of looked like I was bullying her. Mion had been apologizing to me a lot lately. Is Mion the sort of person who would do that this much? Maybe it's just that I've been looking so grim lately.
でさ、何？ケイちゃん、なんか話があったんじゃないの？
ミオンにかなり本気な話がある。突然な話でミオンは面食らうかもしれないが、聞いてほしい。
I can't help but feel like it's going to be about Teppei. Which, I mean, is like a pretty obvious conclusion to draw, but I mean like killing Teppei.
何？
あ、先に逃げ道を渡しておくな。仮に本当だったとして、ミオはそれを認めてくれなくてもいい。しらばっくれててもいい。だけれど、最後まで俺の話は聞いてほしい。鬼ヶ淵村御三家の今や筆頭家、その次期当主の園崎ミオに話がある。
At first, Mion looked like she had no idea what I was saying, but hearing the whole sentence and putting it together, she reacted.
どこで聞いたの？
それは関係ないことだ。
I definitely couldn't tell her who told me. Takano-san, you told me not to, but please forgive me. Was it just Mion? Has it been Mion this whole time? I really thought that, like, in chapter 2, that was like a kind of diversion, almost, right? Like, I don't know, maybe it was? Like, I don't know, because she, like, claimed responsibility for all of the killings, right? But I don't know, it just seemed like Mion was also being used, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm coping too much. Let's just keep moving. Takano-san, you told me not to, but please forgive me. This is why I asked you about it, after all.
ケイちゃんが鬼ヶ淵村の名を知ってることだけでも驚きだけど、私についていろいろとあることないことを知ってそうだね。
ああ、あること。俺が勘違いしてるだけなのかもしれない。でも、それでもいいから聞いてくれ。そして、もしも本当なんだったら。
ケイちゃんが何の話をしようとしてるかわからないけど、話す前に釘を刺すよ。とにかくケイちゃんは大きな勘違いをしてる。だからできるなら、私はケイちゃんの話も聞きたくない。
I think she knows what's going on. I mean, you know, that seems pretty obvious actually, but...
聞いても何も叶えてあげられないからね。でも、話すことでケイちゃんの肩が少しでも軽くなるなら聞くよ。
Yeah, I feel like Mion has a very good understanding of the mindset Keiichi has kind of fallen into and what he thinks Mion can do for him here. Right, I think he thinks Mion can help kill Teppei, right? Because of her, like, future leadership position. But like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if she's not really the one in charge of that, right? At least right now.
本当に聞くだけ。何も起こらないよ。それでもいいね。
ああ。
Mion seemed to know what kind of thing I'd be talking about. She warned me that doing so would be fruitless. That much was obvious. If what I was going to say was true, then the Sonozaki family would be the masterminds behind the string of freak deaths that had been occurring every year in Hinamizawa.
お社様のたたりってあるよな。
Mion nodded a little.
正体不明。なぜ起こるのかも不明。個々には解決しながらも、全体で見れば不可解な連続開始、連続失踪事件。でも、一つだけ共通することがある。それは、必ず村の旧敵が標的に選ばれること。
みたいだね。
Mion spoke as if it didn't relate to her. That was fine. She didn't have to admit it. For now, I just wanted her to stay quiet and listen to me.
あさってだろ、綿流し。今年のたたりの犠牲者ってさ、もう決まってるのか？
Mion didn't answer. Her expression remained the same, too. Like she said, she was just quietly listening.
あ、ごめんな。聞いてるだけって約束なのに、質問しちゃ変だよな。
Mion gave me a look she'd never given me before. A faraway look. A sympathetic one. She didn't nod. She just smiled faintly and listened to me.
もしも、今年のたたりが、里子のおじじゃなかったなら、だって、去年は里子のおばだろ。
Yeah.
順番から言えば、決しておかしくはないだろ。
そうだね。そういう順序もあるね。
第一あいつ、去年のたたりでおばが死んだ後、里子を放り出して丸一年、町に逃げ出してたじゃないか。そんな奴、もろにお社様のたたり確定じゃないかよ。今年のたたりに選んでも不足はないはずだぜ。
そうだね。今年のたたりであいつが死んでも多分みんな納得するね。
俺聞いたんだ。お社様のたたりってのはその
No matter how I looked at it, I wasn't sure whether I should continue. No matter how I tried, the words wouldn't come out.
ひなみ沢連続開始事件、通称お社様のたたりは、園崎家が主導で御三家が起こしている村ぐるみの事件だでしょ？
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the idea the game has led us to believe so far.
別に俺はそれにミオンが関わってるとか、ただもしもそういうたたりを決めている連中に渡りがつくなら、里子のおじをたたりに選ぶように言ってほしいだけなんだ。頼む。
ケイちゃんの言ってる内容はさっきから本当にひどいこと。
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand why why you are not exactly happy with Tepe, right? I don't think anyone questions that, but you know, stooping to the point of this, right? It really shows a lot how Keiichi has changed, like how different he is in this route. I don't know.
ひなみ沢連続開始事件が園崎家主導の事件なんだとしたら、それじゃあ主犯格は私ってことだよね。私がたたりを決め指示をし、何人も殺めて消したことになる。ケイちゃんは私を人殺し呼ばわりするんだ。
だから言ってるじゃないか。ミオンが連続殺人の主犯だろうと無関係だろうと、俺はどうでもいいんだ。
I feel like that's not the same as saying whether someone or not is behind the murders. I mean, you came to her to tell her, like, look, can you, like, make him the victim? Right? That clearly indicates you think she is at least in cahoots, right? It's not whether you care or not, which arguably the fact that you just don't care is, like, more dangerous anyways, right? But...
たとえミオンが殺人犯だって、俺の親友であることには何も関係ないじゃないか。
You know, that is the Chapter 2 Keiichi we know, in all fairness.
それでも全然構わないんだぜ。警察に追われたら助けてやる。お前のアリバイを作ってやるし、逃走だって助けてやる。仲間で親友だからだ。
Okay, I don't know if he would have done all, he would not have done all that in Chapter 2, so definitely different.
そうだろ。
Mion looked surprised for a while. She was dumbfounded.
いきなり共犯宣言？ケイちゃん、かなり大胆だよそれ。
Yeah, it is. No kidding.
いいから話の腰を折るな。佐藤のおじを今年のたたりに。
ケイちゃんストップ。そろそろご飯の準備をしたいから今日はこれくらいにしたいんだけど。
Yeah, that's probably for the best.
ミオン。
I then realized that my cheeks were wet with tears. They slid down my chin and fell, drip drop, to the tatami mat.
最初から言ってる通り、ケイちゃんは大きな勘違いをしてる。お社様のたたりは、たとえ人間の起こした事件であったにせよ、それは園崎家とは、ましてや私とは何の関係もないよ。
ああ、それは分かっているさ。
だからケイちゃんの必死の訴えには胸を打たれるけど、それだけ。私が叶えてあげたくても叶えてあげられない。それもわかるね。
あ
あ。でもケイちゃんの気持ちは痛いくらいに分かったよ。
Yeah.
もしも本当に私がケイちゃんの言うように御三家を操って毎年の犠牲者を選べる立場にあったなら、きっと私はケイちゃんの願いを叶えているよ。
I don't think you would have needed to ask.
ミオン。
でも現実は違う。私はただの園崎ミオン。確かに園崎家はいろいろな意味で悪い噂を持って避難連続開始事件とは何の関係もない。ダム闘争では確かに少々過激な抵抗もしたけれど、それだけ。人殺しなんて大それたこと絶対にやらないよ。
So far that... Okay, so they're a family of Yakuza, so that just seems cap. But at least so far the Hinamizawa group, I don't know, it doesn't seem completely inaccurate. I don't know, there's definitely a side to that family that, yeah, they're probably killing people, right? I mean, they have the murder dungeon, right? We already know they're, like, old bodies there, right? So that's cap. They are killing people, right? However, for the most part, I don't think it's pure cope to at least believe her in part, right? I think this right here is probably true, right? That despite being in all the rumors, they honestly have nothing to do with the freak deaths. Or maybe, or at least in charge of, like, nothing to do with choosing who they are or, like, being truly responsible for them, right? I don't know, again, this could just be pure cope, but I've been kind of thinking for a bit now that, are the Sonizakis involved? Yeah, probably. But I really think they're just like another player in the game, like closer to a pawn than the king on a chessboard, right? Like, you know, that's about where I'm at with it. Important, but not the overlord.
そんな悲しいこと言うなよ。せめて今だけでも嘘でもいいからうなずいてくれればいいじゃないか。
ケイちゃん、夢を見るのは勝手。私がここでうなずいてみせれば、ケイちゃんは聡子があさっての夜に解放されると信じて肩の荷を下ろすことができるんだろうけどね。
And if that didn't come true?
でも無情にも聡子の叔父はあさっての夜も超える。
Well, not if Keiichi has something to say about it.
来週になっても再来週になっても居続ける。それを覚悟してね。私は綿流しの次の日になぜ殺さなかったなんてケイちゃんに詰め寄られたくない。
ミオ。
Mion stood up slowly and closed the sliding door to keep out the wind that had grown chilly.
ミオさんかな、ケイちゃんにそんな話を吹き込んだのは。あの人ひなみ沢をいい感じに誤解してるからな。
Oh, good guess on her part.
まあ本人が一人で楽しんでる分にはいいんだけど、ケイちゃんを感化するのはいただけないな。やれやれ、これだからよそ者は。
高野さんは関係ないからな。
はいはい、でも安心して。仮にミオさんがケイちゃんに喋ったと分かったって別にどうにもならないんだから。
Yeah, there's not really anyone else who probably could have told you besides Oishi, who you've like actually firmly rejected cooperating with in this chapter, you know?
別にミオさんが今年のタタリに選ばれるわけじゃない。そもそも
Really?
今年もタタリがあるかどうかなんてわからないよ。あんなの不幸な偶然がただ積み重なっただけなんだからさ。
Likely story.
聞いてくれてありがとな。もしもミオンが連続事件と何の関係もなかったなら謝っておくな。
そうだね、謝っておいてくれるかな。
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things I don't really know how you just apologize for walking up to someone and being like, hey, I'm pretty sure you're connected with these like serial murder incidents. Can you go murder this person next? Right, like, that's a pretty big accusation to make. And then claiming that you'd be complicit, right? Like Keiichi is kind of shown the mental state he's in to Mion, right? Like, I think Mion has gotten a much better understanding of just how desperate he is right now. Mion said she didn't have much time, but she still brought me to the gate. She said she had a meeting or something today about Sunday's Watanagashi festival, so there would be a lot of people from the town council and the festival committee meeting, or coming. Why did I say meeting? Despite her day being so busy, she still listened to what I had to say.
天に神様がいるならさ、きっとケイちゃんの強い思いは伝わるから。
Yeah. There's no denying that Keiichi feels very strongly about this.
あ、今日は変な話をして本当にごめんな。今日の話はなかったことにしてくれていい？
うん、忘れておくよ。
じゃあ明日な。
バイバイ。
I'd really only spent a short time with Mion. Talking to her made me think. It was clear that what Takano-san had told me, at least, wasn't a complete fabrication. If Mion was really, really unconnected to the incidents, then she probably wouldn't have listened to me so quietly. She heard me out until I was done without making any quips, and I wanted to think that was proof. I did kind of feel like I was grasping at straws. Of course, thinking back on it, it was a terrible thing to discuss. I mean, I went to my friend's house, called her a serial murderer, and then told her to kill Sataka's uncle. I was the only one talking that whole time. She didn't quietly listen to everything I had to say like a pastor listening to a confession. She could have gotten angry partway through, told me off, and to go wash my face in miso soup and come back later. Wash the face in miso soup. Is that... I'm assuming that's just like an expression there, right? Yeah, I can't say I've ever heard an equivalent to that one. But she didn't. Was that proof that Mion's family, the Sonozaki, were the masterminds? Or was she just listening because she felt sorry for me for going kind of crazy? I didn't know which it was. I think the truth's probably somewhere in the middle. But it was the one effort I could make at the moment. It was another form of insurance. Should worst come to worst and the public agency decided to wait and see. It was a completely useless resistance, literally grasping at straws, since they said that if she reported it to the Child Consultation Center, they'd have to respond on the same day. They already be in the middle of responding to it now? If Sadako came to school tomorrow morning all energetic, then everything would just be a needless fear. Why couldn't tomorrow come faster? Is this about to be like the shortest chapter in the game, or is this night going to be crazy? The night was unusually hot and humid. I couldn't get to sleep. I said all that to Sensei. Couldn't possibly decide to wait and see again this year. Sadako, what was it like for her tonight? Had she tasted the end of her nightmare, enjoying a night of liberation? I actually put my hands together and prayed into my futon. It's just gonna bleed over into the next day. Okay. I think that makes sense, but they don't do that often, so. The in-game chapter that covers 2 days is relatively rare.
おはよ
う。よかった。今日もお寝坊かと思ったよ。昨日はおばさまには先に行ったって言われるし、学校には来ていないし、途中で日射病で倒れちゃったのかなって心配してたんだから。
Yeah, that's fair.
へいへい。昨日は心配かけて申し訳ございませんでした。
Oh, I guess all of that was yesterday, which means the conversation with Mion was in the same day as the last episode that I recorded. So I guess in this chapter in particular, they've done the multi-day chapters, or even splitting one day into more than one chapter. They've done that a few times now.
Hey, good morning.
みーちゃん、おはよう。大丈夫？なんかすっごく眠そうだよ。
そういえば昨日は遅くまで町会の人が集まっての打ち合わせ会だったんだろ？
打ち合わせ会なんて名ばかりの宴会だよ。毎年やってるお祭りだもん。
Right.
今さら小難しい打ち合わせなんかないし。
Yeah, those have probably all been done already.
今日の午後はやっぱりお祭りのお手伝いに行くのかな？
うん。バッチャの代わりにいろいろ挨拶しなきゃなんないし。それにね、祭りってのは準備からもう始まってるからね。
Our morning conversation was lighthearted as usual. It looked like Mion had thankfully forgotten about how I'd barged into her house yesterday with that crazy talk. The more I think back on it, I felt like I'd really said something terrible to her. Yeah, you have done that repeatedly in this chapter. Bro, like, this is the chapter where you actually deserve to get, like, shanked by Mion, if I'm gonna be real. I was really thoughtless, and it wouldn't have been weird if she'd yelled at me. Well, to be honest, he completely wronged her in the last chapter, too. He just regularly does not know how to treat Mion. It was highly possible Takano-san had exaggerated her story. To think that our comrade and friend Mion, the young leader of the Sonozakis, one of the 3 families effectively controlling Hinamizawa, was pulling the strings behind the serial death incidents was a little unbelievable. I mean, I know she was, like, helping a lot with the, like, the dam protests, but the idea that she has been for 4 years now, like, the ringleader of these incidents is, like, well, actually going on 5 now, right? That's just a wild proposition to me, right? Like, she would have been, like, 12, presumably. Like, possibly younger. It depends on how old she is in-game. I don't actually have a clue, right? It's so, like, I don't know. That just is a bit much to me. But it's definitely not impossible. I want to make that clear, right? If it came out to be true, and Mion is behind everything, it really wouldn't be the most shocking thing ever. Right now I'm leaning towards it's more likely that it's someone else with maybe Mion being involved by virtue of being the Sonozaki heir, you know? But I've kind of said this a million times. I don't think I need to say it again. But there was even a 1% chance that it was true. And what I said yesterday to Mion might have been a success. Yes, it was no more than 1 in 100. But that little bit of effort might have brought the chances of saving Satoko up by even a tiny bit. At least I'd made that effort. After yesterday ended, I was sure I'd done everything I possibly could. If there was something else I could do, it was probably just to clap my hands and pray that Satoko's uncle would be killed by the curse.
サトコ、今日は来ているといいな。
そうだね。
I mean, the fact that he's praying on that man to die, right, like, really shows how much Keiichi's lost it, right? Like, I don't know. I think last route, even, I don't know. I think there are plenty of people in the last 2 chapters that, yeah, Keiichi really strongly does not like them, right, in that moment, right? Hell, you could probably put Teppei in some of those chapters, and he probably wouldn't want the curse killings to continue. Maybe I'm having too much faith in Keiichi in those chapters. And honestly, like, I can get it, right? Like, I'm not saying I don't get why he wants this. I fully do, right? But it feels like, I don't know, it doesn't feel to me like he would have been sitting there praying on a man's death, right? You know, as his only resort. I do understand the situation, so again, it's not that I completely blame him, but just crazy circumstances. This chapter is so different. It's kind of hard to compare the Keiichis, right? Like, how would I know, right? Like, would Keiichi, without that beginning part where he was Satoko's Nini, right? Would he still go to the lengths that he has so far, and that I think he will continue to go to? I don't know. I think there's a very real chance he wouldn't, actually. But there's a chance he would, and maybe that I just don't quite have the grasp on Keiichi's character fully. Still early in the game. Let's just move on, though. See what's going on. See if Satoko's at school.
先生がいろいろと手配してくれたんでしょ?
Yep.
うん、きっと大丈夫だよ。
ひなみ沢地区の民生委員が私のおばさんなんだけどさ、昨べ電話して聞いてみたよ。
With some luck, they'll clutch.
みーちゃんのおばさんって民生委員さんなんだね。それでさとこちゃんのことなんて言ってたの？
うん、先生があの後直接県の児童相談所に電話してね、児童福祉士が昨べのうちに訪問したらしいよ。私のおばさんにも今後定期的にアプローチするようにと連絡があったって。
And that's basically the wait and see.
小難しい話はいいよ。それよりサトコはどうなったんだよ。保護されたのか？
おばさんはそこまでは知らされてなかったみたい。本来はこういうのって秘密だからね。おばさんが私に話してくれたのも十分に倫理違反なんだしさ。
Yeah, it was.
くそ、かえって不安になったぞ。
行こう、学校に。
That's the best you can do right now. Right. Discussing this more would just make us feel worse. It was far quicker to go to school and see if Satoko was safe or not. The 3 of us nodded and ran off. Was Satoko safe? What measures had the Child Consultation Center taken? I didn't care what. As long as we could go back to our peaceful life with Satoko today, it didn't matter to me. At the shoe racks at the entrance, Rena took a peek in Satoko's shoe cubby. Empty? No.
さとこちゃんの靴あるよ、あるよ。
ケイちゃん、さとこは来てるよ。よかった。
来てるだけじゃわからないだろう。サトコの顔を見るまで何もわかるものか。
We trotted towards the classroom. The classroom was lively, as it usually was in the morning.
サトコ、どこだ？
みー、ここにちゃんといますですよ。朝っぱらから騒々しいですわね。少しはお静かになさいませ。さとこちゃん、大丈夫だった？
All of our friends crowded around Satoko excitedly.
保護司来たんでしょ？どういう話になったわけ？
呼んだのはどなたですの？まったくどんな騒ぎでしたのよ。
先生だよ。あれだけ欠席すりゃ心配もする。
Satoko said, I told you I'm fine, under her breath. She was still trying to overcome all the suffering on her own, you know.
私もおじさまもとんだ迷惑でしたのよ。急にあんなに人に押しかけられて、もう。みんなさとこちゃんのこと心配してたんだよ。
Yeah, it being sudden is kind of the point.
迷惑だなんて言わないで。
ああ、もうとにかくそれでどうなったんだよ。
どうもこうもしませんわ。
Why does she look so happy about that?
風邪が治ったから学校に来ただけのことですのよ。これからはあんまりお休みして心配をかけないようにしないといけませんわね。
Still feels forced to me. What? What's Satoko saying?
おじさんはどうなったの？
Probably nothing.
多少誤解があったことを認めて二人でごめんなさいをしました。
Both? Tug. Rika-chan grabbed the back of my collar and pulled me away. That's almost certainly for the best.
なんだよリカちゃん。
Rika-chan silently dragged me all the way into the hallway.
リカちゃん、あれはどういうことだよ。
さとこは何でもないと言って追い返してしまいました。
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunately the pretty obvious outcome.
バカ野郎！なんで？
No, somewhere in my mind, I thought it might turn out like this. Satoko didn't ask for anyone's help. She didn't hide behind anyone. She was trying to ride out this pain. She wanted to show Satoshi proof that if he came back to them, she wouldn't need to hide behind him anymore.
だけど監督に聞いた話じゃ、保護士ってのは本人の意思に関係なく緊急保護をすることができるんだろ？
The thing is, it's kind of hard to prove things, right? If the abused is not going to cooperate.
いくらサトコが虐待を否定したって虐待は事実。
Chi-sensei finally came. Her expression was far from cheerful.
前原くんの言う通り、児童福祉士は緊急性があると判断すれば職権で緊急保護をすることができます。当事者の意思に関係なく。
じゃあどうしてサトコの意思が変に尊重されて保護されないことに？
それに沖宮の相談所もいろいろ検討した末にそういう判断を。
なんだよそりゃ！先生、昨日あんた絶対に助けるから大丈夫って言わなかったか？これはどういうことだよ！おかしいじゃねえかよ！おい！
圭一、実はさとこの児童虐待の通報は
The third?
これが3回目なのです。
We knew of another one, but
過去にも2回あったのです。
nothing comes of it.
古出さん、
Sensei tried to stop her, but Rika-chan went on speaking anyway.
過去に一昨年の冬に通報して様子見になったって話は聞いてるが、その前にもあったのか？
There's a point where, like, you know, if there's smoke, there's fire. This is kind of ridiculous.
さとこの死んでしまったお父さんはさとこの本当のお父さんではないのです。
Don't tell me he was abusing her too.
リカちゃん、それが
I'm stunned at the sudden revelation. I had no idea what Rika-chan wanted to tell me, but it seemed really important, so I couldn't get a word in either.
さとこのお母さんは再婚なのです。さとことさとしはお母さんの連れ子で、お父さんとは血はつながっていなかったのです。
Let me guess, he was abusive too? Satoshi was a good kid, one who listened politely to what adults told him. He was immediately welcomed by their new father and was loved. But Satoko was different. She was rebellious, she told lies, she played pranks. Her stepfather didn't like her at all.
つまりどういうことだよ？
さとこはおじ夫婦に預けられる以前の家族の時もあまり良好な家族関係ではなかったのです。
How does it keep getting worse for Satoko? This is insane. Of course, their stepfather didn't have any malicious intent at the start. At first, he must have worked hard to get his new daughter to accept him. But the young Satoko didn't make any effort at all towards that end. She was distant towards her stepfather and never opened her heart to him even a little. She just got on his nerves all the time, with seemingly forced lies and pranks. Her father's discipline and punishment must have been loving at first, of course, but that, too, faded quickly.
私はその時はひなみ沢にいなかったからよく知らないけれど、昨日電話で初めて知りました。
先生が聞いたのはどんな話ですか？
さとこちゃんが両親、特に義理のお父さんを陥れるのを目的に自分で生活相談所に電話したって。
自称と作り話？
聡子は嫌いなお父さんを追い払うため嘘の電話をしたのです。
Jeez. Child welfare officers rushed there and heard the story. Her father genuinely apologized for a few times when he had gone too far and agreed to let the child welfare center give him coaching.
いろいろと関係機関が調べた結果ね、ギフとさとこちゃんの心のすれ違いに原因があることは分かったんだけど、それ以上にさとこちゃん自身に問題があることが分かったの。
さとこに問題って何です？
Okay, this is Satoko's mother. There were a few times where she had lived with de facto husbands, though those relationships didn't result in remarriage. From a young age, Satoko had been forced to call at least 2 or 3 people her father. At some point, Satoko's pranks escalated. She would spill food on purpose, turn over her plate, and even throw it. She would break the windows in the neighborhood and shoplift candy. She would put thumbtacks everywhere and set other traps to seriously hurt people. Not in the way she did now, just to get laughs. She was also fond of telling lies that would be found out right away. People got mad at her every time, but she never, ever changed her behavior.
さとこちゃんのことを問題児なんて思わないでね。これは幼いさとこちゃんが母親を知らない男に取られまいとして取った自衛的な行為なの。
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Not wrong. I mean, in my head, you know, someone who does all that is still kind of a problem child. Maybe I just have a different definition than other people, right? That child, a problem all the time. They're a problem child, if you ask me, right? But I understand her motives. I understand why she would do these things, right? It's not... If you have a life that tumultuous, I can understand why you would desperately want to keep your mother, right? And it's like... In regards to Satoko's problematic behavior, child psychology experts from public institutions indicated her actions were to draw her mother's attention to herself. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. They acknowledged that she had a form of harmful emotional trauma and declared that she needed counseling and therapy from professionals. They didn't know whether that therapy had healed the wounds in her heart.
さとこちゃんはわざと体に傷を作り、お父さんに虐待を受けているとね。
I mean, that's a step
自分で
above.
通報してお父さんを追い出そうとした。
That's kind of wild. I guess maybe now what? Do they not trust the situations around her, right? Like think it's all made up or something?
でも結局さとこをいじめてたわけだろ。
いいえ。
No.
虐待の話は全部さとこちゃんの作り話だった。義理のお父さんはもちろん少し感情的な叱り方をしてしまったかもしれないけど、逸脱しているほどではなかったの。
Satoko had lied to chase away her stepfather, and they saw through her right away and found out that Satoko had issues.
ひょっとしてそのせいで一昨年の冬は様子見に？
はい、児童相談所にちゃんと昔の記録が残ってましたですから。
I suppose if we look back at the tips, right? There was that related note from a few years prior. It probably had to do with this incident right here that they're discussing.
さとこの嘘の可能性もあるから慎重にということになりましたのです。
なんだよそれ。つまりなんだよ。さとこは嘘をつくかもしれないから慎重に。だから様子を見ろってことになってるのかよ。
I mean, in a way, it's like... It's really unfortunate, right? In a situation where the abuse is real this time. But, like, at the same time, you know, let's say it was a repeat of the first situation. It'd be kind of ridiculous as the uncle, right? Like, you know, like, again, assuming he was acting with good intentions and just treating her well and just Satoko didn't like him, right? Imagine they just come in And right away, even despite the past record of her lying, right, about abuse, right, instantly take her away, right? Like, I don't know, right? Waiting and seeing is, like, unfortunately, like, I feel like arguably the correct thing to do. It doesn't make this situation any less messed up. You know, like, especially if she's lying and saying the abuse didn't happen, what proof do they have to go on, right? I don't know, the only thing I could think is the 1-year absence, right? But it depends on how much record they have of that. Let's just keep moving.
狼と羊飼いさんなのです。
Yeah, pretty much. That fable about telling a lie once, making others unwilling to believe you later.
ふざけんなよ。昔のことなんか全然無関係だろう。今現在起こっている事実だけが重要なんだろうが。里子はおじに虐待されている。どうしてその事実が昔の出来事で歪められなきゃならねえんだよ。
Neither Sensei nor Rika-chan had anything to say to that.
とにかくそれを慎重に判断するために保護士さんが昨日訪れましたのです。
And Satoko dealt with them, put on the best, strongest smile she could manage, and denied the abuse. Of course, she was probably being threatened to keep quiet about it by her uncle. Satoko was trying to outlast everything without asking for help. Satoko wanted to wait for Satoshi to come back home, and she outright denied the truth of the abuse. What an idiot. What? You're not really enduring it. Do you really think pretending like this will actually bring Satoshi back? Just stop it already. Satoshi, he abandoned you. And the fact that he hasn't shown up to save you now is proof, isn't it? So just stop it. Please stop being weird and pretending to endure it.
今した話はいいですね。他の子に喋ったら先生怒りますからね。
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Chie-sensei gave me a warning, then left to go back to the teacher's lounge.
圭一、里子のことをかわいそうな子なんて思わないでくださいです。里子はしっかり生きていますです。里子は
そんなの分かってる。俺たちのかけがえのない仲間だ。
里子はまだ頑張っています。
You can't deny that.
もう少し見守ってあげましょうです。
I will say this is one of those situations where you probably should just be accepting help, right? But I understand in that situation it's hard to do so.
相談所の人が今後も定期的に訪問すると言ってるのです。大変なことになったらすぐに助けてくれますよ。
大変なことになった後だろ。
Yeah. One thing I'm really worried about in this route is somehow Satoko being killed. Like, possibly as a result of the abuse. Any more than that would have sounded like I was picking a fight, so I firmly swallowed my next words and went back to the classroom. Mion and Rena were talking to Satoko like they always did. It was a silly conversation, a humorous, even fun one, like it was any old day. If Satoko really said she could still endure it, then maybe I should do as Rika-chan said and watch over her. Maybe whatever help I offer will just go unwanted. Jeez, man. I can't help but feel like...
さて、お昼でございますわね。
I don't know. At least for Satoko's sake right now, I hope Keiichi can, like, keep a cool head. Act normal, right? Because I think that's what Satoko kind of wants right now. This is so hard to watch, man. This whole chapter it's messed up.
5人揃ってのお昼は久しぶりだね。やっぱりこうじゃないとダメだよね。
まったく同感同感。ほらほらケイちゃんも机寄せて。
Satoko brought her own desk over as well, grinning broadly. Even knowing nothing had been resolved, this exchange was pleasant and made me remember how fun it used to be.
いつまでもリカにお弁当を作ってもらっては悪いですわね。いいのですよ。さとこのお弁当を作るのは僕の楽しみなのです。
Rika-chan's such a good girl. Having such a good friend must be so reassuring.
僕に大きなハンバーグを入れて、さとこには焦げたのを入れて。さとこだけかわいそでニパー。
I take it back. Well, she's Rika-chan after all.
ほらほら、見て見て。
She knows other people will pick at it anyways.
今日はほら、オムライスなんだよ。マッシュルームとか美味しそうだよね。だよね、ハルー。いつもながらお見事なお手前でございましたよ。いつお嫁に行ってもおかしくない腕前ですわね。お嫁。
Seems to be a fan of that thought.
お嫁を食べると。は
レナにお嫁は NG ワードだね。
Can't do it.
以後控えるように。
That does sound about right.
ほんのちょっぴり完成しましたよ。
ところでミオンの弁当はなんだよ。今日のはまた趣が違って期待大だな。
おじさんはまったりと夕べのおかず詰め合わせね。煮物がいい感じなんだよ。ほら、大根の色はかなりいいでしょ。わあ、
美味しそうなのです。
煮物は一晩寝かせてからがこれはかなりいけそうだ。よってさとこの分はなし。俺が全部食って感想を聞かせるから黙って見てろ。
Wild.
なんですって？私の分もおよこしなさいな。
Elbow, punch, headbutt. I'll use my knees too. Or yeah. They scrapping. Well, things are kind of back to normal, at least for now then.
密着距離まで入れば私の有利は動きませんわね。ケイキさんの分のお大根が実に美味しいですわ。
ちくしょう。バトル開始時から密着でいきなりコンボとは。
Treated you like this was Mortal Kombat or something.
無念。
This little exchange, how long had it been? It looked like they'd ended up going with the wait-and-see approach. But maybe her uncle had realized she'd gone a little too far and would dial it back now. Hey, no, doubtful. Really doubtful, but whatever. If her treatment improved a little, would that be a good thing? I mean, yeah, it would be. Satoko was grinning wider than I'd ever seen as she chomped down on her mouthful of the daikon she'd plundered from me. Did it really taste that good? Satoko was somewhat cute like that. Bro, look at her face! She looks terrible! And just as I'd done many times, I grabbed her head and started petting it. Catch. Smack. Flip-flop. Clatter, clatter. Just instinctive response there, I'd say.
さとこちゃん？
It was so sudden that for a moment I didn't know what happened. The back of my hand was stinging. I went to pet Satoko's head, and then she hit my hand?
どうしたの、さとこ。
Satoko was scratching at her head, as though a pimple or something had appeared on it and become itchy. It was so sudden and so unprovoked that I didn't understand what had happened.
どうしたさとこ。
What, did she have a head wound? At some point, her body had been covered in a thin layer of sweat, and her breathing had turned ragged. When I pet her head, did she not like it? Was that what it meant?
お前、頭撫でられるの嫌いだったっけ？
Once again, slowly, I held out the palm of my hand and brought it close to Satoko's head. The instant the palm of my hand touched her head, there was a shock like static electricity, and Satoko began to howl. Thud, slam! She grabbed my arm in both hands, and as if flinging off a snake trying to cling to her, as if trying to throw away something dirty, she threw it violently. It happened too suddenly for me to react. I mean, if I had to guess, right, there's some kind of wound that is in pain. I hit the desk behind me, and both it and I fell to the floor. The classroom fell deathly silent. As Satoko bellowed, it sounded like she was in the throes of death, and she unsteadily backed away. What the... Okay, this is... Yeah, this is beyond just, like, a head wound, I think. Then she threw up the food she'd just eaten. She vomited it all back up. Splish, splat. The sound of Satoko's vomit hitting the floor rang through the classroom.
大丈夫かよ、サトコ。具合でも。
But like for real this time. What is going on? I reached out a hand and she swatted it away with all her might. With such extreme strength that I fell onto the floor again. Dude, you'd think you would have learned that after the second time, that you probably shouldn't go for that again. Satoko put both hands on her head as though protecting it, groaned some more, and took a few steps back. And then she began swinging both hands around. Students in nearby seats were forced to evacuate. She grabbed anything within reach, bento boxes, chairs, threw them, tossed them, and flung them about.
ちょっとやめなよ、サトコ。あんたどうしちゃったの？
Literally what happened? Like, what is going on? She screamed out as if Mion's words had caused her physical pain. No one spoke a word to her. All the students were withdrawing behind us, leaving Satoko alone in the corner of the classroom. Around her, there were desks and chairs all over the floor. Bento lay scattered. It was terrible. All I could hear was Satoko's ragged breaths and the voice of the cicadas. The strings of tension loosened around Satoko. Maybe she suddenly grew scared of her own actions, because she started trembling and gave a word of apology. But nobody knew just who that apology was directed towards. Yeah. So, for now, I decided to answer as everyone's representative.
いや、そっちこそ大丈夫か？
ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。
Wow, unfortunately, this voice actor is killing this, and this is making this hard to watch. Our words didn't match each other at all. Satoko hugged her shoulders, and back she went. Bang! She ran into the locker with the cleaning supplies in it. Even that made her give a little yelp. The impact caused the bucket atop the locker to fall, making a loud sound, and that scared Satoko most of all. She almost jumped out of her skin, grabbing a bunch of the curtain in her hands. Nobody spoke to her. They could only look, not even remembering to blink. I literally have no clue how to explain what's going on right now. Yeah, I'm guessing things must have ramped up with the call. It sounds like, I don't know. It sounds to me like she's basically speaking to her uncle, right? Like, to me, that reads, it wasn't me who made that call, right? Satoko. What? What on earth? I stood up, took a step away from everyone, and approached Satoko.
何があったんだ？
だから私知らないです。違うから、もう嫌です。やめてください。許して。
Who is she speaking to, though? Like, another one of my thoughts is I can't help but think back to, like, Keiichi in Chapter 1, or, right, like, when Rena kind of went nuts, apparently, before, like coming back to Hinamizawa, right, when she was like, Hiri no Yashiro-sama. I can't help but kind of think to that as well.
落ち着けよ、サトコ。俺がわかるか？
もうやだ。嫌です。
Every time I took a step forward, she grasped the curtains more tightly and cried out.
サトコ、俺だよ。ケイチだ。わかんないのか？お前に危害なんか加えない。だから落ち着けって。大丈夫だ。俺はお前の味方だって。
助けて。怖いのやだ。気持ち悪いのやだ。
This is so strange to watch. I have no clue what's happening. Or, like, why. I mean, like, I've had some guesses, but, like, nothing substantiated, really. Suddenly, my shoulders were grabbed and I was dragged backward. It was Rena.
ごめん、ケイチ君はちょっと後ろに行ってて。
After pulling me back, she ran towards Satoko in my place.
大丈夫だよ、さとこちゃん。もう怖いことなんかないよ。ほら、安心して。
I mean, she's just finally breaking down. As she gripped the curtains and kept calling for Nini, she continued to wail about being forgiven for something and to be saved from something. What is this? Mio gnashed her teeth and groaned, and there were tears falling from her firmly closed eyes.
どうなってんだよこれ。昨日で全部終わったんじゃないのか。
No, things probably only got worse.
今日からまた元の生活に戻っていくんじゃないのか。ミオ、ミオ。
Crash. There was a crazy sound. Rena had taken the cleaning supply locker and kicked it down to the ground. Everyone stood surprised at Rena's unexpected act of brutality. After that, Rena embraced the bawling Satoko from behind and started crying with her stifled.
レナ、どうした？
ごめん、ケイチ君。ちょっと黙ってて。
It's probably for the best.
今のはなんだよ。どうしたんだよ。サトコから何か聞いたのか。何を聞いたんだよ。
サイナー。
Yeah, dude, like.
黙ってろって言ってんでしょ。
Oh, good lord. Okay. I saw that sprite and I knew stuff was about to get real, but I didn't expect that. Right? She did tell you, like, pretty politely to be quiet, and you're just not listening right now. Like, in this situation, you need to cool it. Rena's raw, hostile emotions hit me like a brick. It was no more than a momentary howl of emotion for Rena, but it was more than that for me. She had shown me what was behind all that emotion, what was in her heart.
サトコちゃん。やだやだやだやだ。もうやだやだやだ。許して。何もできなかった私たちを許して。
I mean, I'm starting to worry that someone did something to her, right? I mean, I think that's pretty obvious, but like, I don't know. I mean, this feels like beyond, like, just... I mean, you could easily... you can definitely explain this as just like a pure breakdown. I don't know. I don't know. It probably is just a pure breakdown. Probably things just got worse yesterday. Right now, that's my guess. Things got worse after the, the welfare officer came. Somehow, I'm guessing she was physically, and she was harmed in some way, right? And is just breaking down now and is just like, I don't know, like, wished her brother was here, right? Like, gotten to that point, right? Whereas before, she was trying to prove, right, that she could overcome this, but now she's like, I need my brother, but he's just not here. I mean, she repressed it for a really long time. I'm not surprised that... I can't say I'd be surprised if that's really, like, what it was.
ごめんね。ごめんね。
Forgive us for being unable to do anything. Rena's words made me feel as though the blood vessels in the back of my head were suddenly all turning to ash. My vision grew distant, blurred with gray, and the world lost its color. I thought we could save Satoko, but though I knew it'd be the sooner the better, I thought there was no time limit for doing that. I never even dreamed that we could be too late. I'd been making a huge mistake. I thought Satoko could be hurt, but never that she'd break. It was such a huge mistake. People, they break. Thinking that they don't is absolutely absurd. We needed to save Satoko. We needed to save her before she broke. That fatal lapse in awareness brought this on. Whose fault was it? That went without saying. Mine. No, ours. We all took on the duty of saving Satoko. We were negligent to the point of laziness. In that sense, this was the inevitable result. Even if this didn't happen today, and it happened tomorrow, or the day after, or next week, we would have just sat around doing nothing until that day. So this was the obvious result. I slumped down to my knees, just as Mion and Rika-chan had done, and I too closed my eyes tight and couldn't stop myself from sobbing.
何の騒ぎですか？ちょっと、何があったんです？
The teacher came, and her face screwed up at the terrible spectacle before her. The instant she realized the teacher was here, Satoko went through another complete change. She wiped her face with the curtains, and like nothing happened, smiled.
北条さん、これは一体何事ですか？
ちょっとレナさんと喧嘩になってしまっただけですのよ。お弁当をめぐってちょっぴり大暴れなんですの。
Trying to hide everything from authority figures.
ね。
Rena didn't nod in reply, but then, since Satoko wished it, she nodded without strength. The rest of the class couldn't keep up with her extreme changes. They all just stared, in a daze.
ちょっと悪ふざけをしただけなんですのよ。皆さん、度肝を抜かれすぎでございますわね。
Satoko would probably sweep the whole thing under the rug. For what? Her heart is torn to pieces, so what? What else? You wanted your Nini to help, didn't you? But, unfortunately for you, Satoshi doesn't ever intend on coming back. It's never that easy. He won't just conveniently show up and save you. So, you don't have to wait for him anymore. You can cry, beg for help, and you can run away. Whoa. What was that sound
私た
effect?
ちが無力だから。
Yeah. Mion suddenly said. She spoke then those few words that had tormented me countless times. Those words were a spell, and when I heard them, my whole body suddenly regained its calm. My emotions all slipped away like they'd never been there, like a wave departing. And then, the world's color flipped inside out. What is this song? My field of view expanded. My head grew remarkably cold, and I felt like my mind's volume had grown even wider than the classroom we were in. At the time, my soul was doubtlessly no longer in the small, petty vessel of my head, but floating in the air a little above it. It was a mysterious feeling of release. I broke free of the cramped confines of my skull and stretched out my roots in all directions as far as I wanted to. It was a strange feeling, and one I never felt before. An odd sense of exhilaration. My sharpened senses caused me to transcend what is happening. My mind was sharper than a knife's edge, and I immediately decided that spending the time to let myself be crushed with grief would be an absolute waste. I erased all the garbage information from my brain. I expelled the pointless emotions presenting obstacles to action.
ミオ、お前は呪ってろ。自分の無力さをいつまでも。
え？
If I could have taken back what had happened by crying about it, I'd have cried all day. But the fact was, this was how things had turned out. I couldn't take back what had happened. The top priority then would be to prevent the situation from worsening further and to sever the chains of misfortune. Until today, I'd been looking at things so narrow-mindedly I could scarcely believe it. To save Satoko, the only thing to do was save Satoko. That's the only thing I thought about. I didn't allow myself to realize the most basic, direct, and certain way of removing the source of Satoko's unhappiness. Yeah, here it is. No, actually, I realized it yesterday. But as for the means, I'd relied on some stupid curse from some dumb deity. I never considered carrying the task out myself. I would obliterate Satoko's uncle. There were plenty of ways to do it. This was a task that had held infinite methods. Ironically, the method of saving Satoko required mostly money, but the method of killing that man pretty much took no money at all. I could kill him with the least amount of investment. The least amount of money suited him. It was only the weight of his life. I kept eliminating needless, worthless information from my head, replenishing it with only the knowledge I need to achieve my goal. I used every cell in my brain to think about how I'd kill him. The way I killed him didn't matter. I would allow any method, from whatever time and whatever country, as long as it ended in a quick and certain death. If I were to have an additional condition, it would be to not get caught. Removing him was an act designed to return the peaceful times we had with Satoko. I was arrested in exchange for the removal, then we might as well have killed each other. With only him gone, we'd go back to our normal lives. That was my supreme objective. My ultimate goal. Kill him. Definitely. But definitely don't leave evidence either. Two alternatives at odd with one another. The condition of not leaving a trace back to me automatically narrowed the number of murder methods. No witnesses was an absolute must. Fortunately, given the right time in Hinamizawa, there would be nobody around. I mentally reconstructed the land around Satoko's house. Dude, this is insane. This is the point Keiichi has reached. I mean, I knew this was coming, but actually seeing him just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill him. It's still chilling. The number of pedestrians, different at different times. The movement algorithm of the neighbors. Would I lure him out or charge at him? What would my weapon be? When and where would I carry this out? Where? It needed to be somewhere I wouldn't leave a trace. When? It needed to be as soon as possible for Satoko's safety, without wasting even a millisecond. This is absurd. Completely absurd. When I thought about it this way, it struck me how easy the act of killing was. If I could leave evidence, I was just gonna kill him. Anyone could easily turn into a murderer. But our reason prevented that. It told us doing so would get us arrested for sure. In the end, being arrested by the police was the final thing preventing people from committing homicide. Absurd. If you went all the way out in the very middle of the ocean, you wouldn't leave any trace at all. Anyone would drop those they hated into the depths if they knew that. It was all too easy to simply remove him. I could leave class right now, grab a metal baseball bat or something from the schoolyard, go to his house and attack him. Estimated time would be 25 minutes. Oh, we got the time estimation too. If I wanted us to kill each other, it wouldn't even be minutes. I could do it in 1500 seconds. I knew just how much his continued existence depended on me. He was nothing. I could expel him from this world within just 1500 seconds after making up my mind. From when I decided what to do, he only had 1500 seconds. Actually, if I ran full speed to his house, that number would go down even further. But he was alive. He was still part of this world at this very moment, having torn Satoko's body and mind to shreds. Why? Because I was letting him live. I was permitting him to live, so he was alive. If I rescinded that permission, he would be evacuating this mortal coil within 1500 seconds. You think I'd let you live to breathe even 1500 more seconds of air? I'm taking that permission back, right here, right now. You'd better thank me for letting you live until today. However, I actually needed more than 1500 seconds. I'm not just going to end you. Getting back our old lives is far more important. It's only you I'll be cleanly cutting out of this world. They won't find a culprit. I'll forget that I dirtied my hands on the likes of you as naturally as I brush my teeth before bed. So to do that, I'll make a special exception for you and give you more than 1500 seconds. I'll give you special permission to keep on living as you have until I can construct the perfect plan for your murder. Wait, Keiichi. You can't let that time go to waste. Yeah, I know. I'll kill him quickly. I'll remove him with certainty. I won't even waste much time to perfect that plan. Think back. Tomorrow is Watanagashi, isn't it? Last year on the night of Watanagashi, her aunt died. Her head was busted open by some deviant and her brains splattered everywhere. That's it. He's someone who deserves to be given death on the night of Watanagashi. Hey, Yashiro-sama. You call yourself a guardian, but you didn't protect Satoko. Cursing Satoko's family for the damn stuff is your own business, but now you've made Satoko unhappy when she didn't have anything to do with it. I, Keiichi Maibara, hereby denounce you, the guardian deity of Hinamizawa, a failure. We don't need you. Go back to the deepest, darkest part of your shrine this year. Besides, if you had just cursed and killed both her aunt and her uncle last year, none of this would have ever happened. The curse this year, it's not on you. I'll be the one deciding. It won't be the three families controlling the serial deaths behind the scenes, no. Not some vague people who I can't tell if they're buffoons or not. This time, I'll be the one to deliver divine judgment. So don't get in my way, just watch. Stay quiet and watch. I'll obliterate him. I'll wipe him off the face of the earth. I will stomp out his very existence. Go away, disappear, and die. I'll tear your heart apart just like you did to Satoko. I'll have your blood as payment. Warg? I don't know what that sound effect is supposed to be.
Keiichi-kun, 大丈夫?
Oh, he's feeling great. Rena, Mion, and Rika-chan were looking after me. Had I fallen to the floor?
急に倒れたからびっくりしたよ。うなされてなかった？うなってたよ。
うるさい。黄色い声で話しかけるな。
Jeez. Back to his normal life, by the way. My friends gave a start and backed away.
なんだよ。
Ren and the others, they exchanged glances, unsure of what to say, and stood confused for a few moments.
今の、圭一くんの声。
当たり前だろ。
Rena gulped firmly and opened her mouth.
今一瞬、圭一くん、すごい目だった。
Yeah, this is about what I expected. Now Keiichi's the one doing the crazy eyes.
目？光の角度でそう見えたんだろ。バカバカしい。
見間違いじゃないよ。
Mio knows exactly what this means.
あんな目、初めて見た。
Never mind, no she doesn't. What were these guys talking about? They've all been too scared of me lately.
前原圭一くんだよね。
What was Rena saying? Who else do I look like except Keiichi Maibara? The look I gave her seemed to speak quite eloquently to those irritated thoughts. She understood and quickly apologized.
ごめん。
Yeah, bro, going back to your normal life, by the way.
気にしないでね。
I think the main problem with Keiichi's plan to murder Teppei here is that I think everybody would know exactly who it was, right? I don't think no matter how perfectly he does this, there's going to be any doubt that it was Keiichi, right? Like, let's see these tips. Emergency. June 18th, 1983. Abuse issues regarding Satoko Hojo. Urgent. We propose that Satoko Hojo must be taken into immediate custody based on the items below. 1. Family situation. Life with adoptive father who recently returned to Hinamizawa has already turned disastrous. She is currently subject to unendurable physical and mental abuse from the father. 2. Child Consultation Center's response. A child probation officer was dispatched yesterday on the 17th from the Prefecture Welfare Office, but because of the 77 case, changed to continued coaching and cautionary action. Unfortunately, the consultation office head does not properly understand the situation. 3. Status of concerned child. Child already appears to be suffering from an outbreak of something close to neurosis or manic depression. Yeah. If her unstable pubescent mind is negatively stimulated by stress, it will put her development of a healthy body and mind at risk. This cannot be allowed to continue from a humane standpoint. 4. Allegations made to the family court. We propose, based on the above items, that Satoko Hojo should immediately be taken into protective custody. She should be secured temporarily under emergency allegations to the family court under Article 28. We request emergency coordination between all related agencies. So, someone has clearly realized that, this is not just a wait-and-see kind of scenario. Like, this is real. Like, but, I mean, it might be too late for Keiichi. He saw that mental breakdown. And he's made up his mind, right? He has made up his mind. Let's look at D23, number 44. Children with Special Needs, General D2-3, number 44. Blank, blank, 1977. Child name, Satoko Hojo, blank years old. Residence, blank, Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone. 1. Consultation circumstances. Telephone SOS from child abuse. 2. Abuse situation. Child claims she is being physically abused by her adoptive father. 3. Family structure, circle marks abusers. Adoptive father, real mother, older brother, child in question, with the circle being in front of adoptive father. Note, adoptive father and real mother entered family registry in 19 blank. The child is the daughter of the mother's previous husband. 4. Child Consultation Center's response. On the day of the child's telephone consultation, the center called the child's school and asked of her situation. On that day, the child welfare officer on duty visited the child's house and conducted an interview. The adoptive father sincerely listened to instruction and agreed to take child-raising workshops in the city from now on. As part of the suggested coaching, the center will continue to observe the situation. 5. Other notes. As a result of numerous counseling sessions at the city's education consultation office regarding the child, we learned there was a high possibility the cause of the child's excessive distrust towards her adoptive father was the result of a lack of communication. The abuse she claimed hadn't actually taken place. She had made a false report to distance herself from her adoptive father. Below was a note written in pencil by the person on duty at the time. The problem appeared to be more with the daughter. Chief Investigator F of the city's education consultation office said that most of the stories of abuse were likely fabrications. They decided to shift the focus of their coaching to the child. Be cautious not to take everything the child says as truth. Yeah, so I think part of the problem is, now she's still lying about, or she was still lying about not being abused, and this time, they immediately sided with the abuser. But like I said, they, at the very least, clearly the situation is understood by somebody. Was this the... Yeah. So... Yeah, so that is, in fact, what was stapled to the bottom of the report, was that report right there, about it being false, which would explain why they were hesitant that last time. But like I said, they've realized that this time, this is not, like, the same, right? And that something needs to be done. Wow, what an episode. So, I mean, we started this episode, honestly, this whole episode had so many things, like, go crazy, that honestly, for a second, I completely forgot about when Keiichi went to Mion's house, right? And that was one of the first things that happened in this episode, is Keiichi goes to Mion's house and basically says, look, straight up, I think you're a murderer, right? I think you're behind the serial death incidents, and if you are, I need you to kill someone for me, right? And that was obviously showing the mental state that Keiichi was in. And so that was already bad enough, but they were under the understanding that, like, tomorrow was the make or break day, right? Because the Child Welfare Center had been called, right? And their response would affect, like, it would impact basically everything, right? Whether or not she was taken to safety, or whether she was stuck in this situation for even longer, and she ended up stuck, right? And she lied about it to protect Teppei, right? Because she wanted to overcome this herself. But today, Keiichi goes and just touches her head, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's somehow that action alone, like, triggered memories of Satoshi, right? That's kind of actually my best guess right now. At first, I thought it was like some physical pain, and then for a second, I was like, what if she was like, I don't know, like, something was done to her, right? Like, experimented on almost yesterday, like she was somehow in the meeting, right? And like my whole theory about, like, maybe they're, like, I don't know, giving people, like, shots to make them crazy or something. I was like, maybe they did that, but I was like, that doesn't really make sense. So I didn't really continue with that line of thought. But now at this point, I think, like, because it just seemed like a mental breakdown, right? Like, it was too much. It felt like she was talking to Satoshi. That's who it felt like she was talking to the whole time, now that I look back at it, right? Apologizing for everything, right? Like, you know, and I think she does feel a lot of guilt for for hiding behind Satoshi, right? I think that's well known. I mean, and just beyond that, right? Like, I didn't call them. At first I was like, oh, that seems like she's talking to her uncle, right? But in her eyes, that could be like her talking to Satoshi and being like, look, I was trying to stay strong. Like, I promise you, like, come back. Right, and that's eventually what it looped back to, right, is like, Nini, like, please come back, please help me, right? But that scene was hard to watch. Unfortunately, Satoko's mental is really bad. It's hard to say if the damage can really be undone at this point, and I think Keiichi realized that. And so he went into that kind of trance-like state that we saw Mion and Rena in chapter 1. He did the eyes, right? Right, and obviously you got to talk about what Keiichi was thinking beyond just, like, all of the stuff we'll talk about after. I mean, he straight up is like, I'm gonna kill that man. There's no doubt. I will kill him. Right? I will get away with it so that we can continue our normal life. Right? He's lucky that he gets to live. I'm gonna take away that permission. You know? He's fully lost it. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And the thing is, he comes out of this thought, right? First of all, I guess it's worth noting that, like he said, he entered like a transcendent-like state. I don't know what's up with that. I will need to think about that further, right? Is that just like a was that, I mean, obviously it was like a snap in his mental, right? But like, is there actually something to the idea, right? Where he was like, it was like I was a spirit floating above my head, right? Not actually in my body, right? How literal is that? I don't know. I'm going to assume this is like all figurative, right? And should be taken with caution. But, you know, sometimes, like I said, I try to look into things just in case. And so I'll need to think about that one, right? Because the big thing is I'm trying to think about how does this compare, given that we ended up seeing the eyes, can we assume this is what more or less what it was like for Rennet and Mion? Right? Like, were they, like, did the same thing happen to them and when they fully lost it? I think it's likely, right, that some of these incidents, right, eventually just, like, did something to them, right? I don't know. Before I really just assumed it had something to do with, like, Hinamizawa itself, but I don't think Keiichi's really, like, besides his mental state, nothing has been done to him that we know of, right? Like, because even my whole theory that maybe it was somehow something medical, right? Like, what would it have been? The only thing that happened to him medically was when he was in the nurse's office with Irie, and I mean, yes, that was suspicious, but to our knowledge, the only thing he got was a compress, right? Like, what? How in the world would that cause this, right? Like, I don't know, unless that compress has some crazy stuff going on, right? So I'm starting to think maybe it is just mental, right? Maybe it's just like a big mental break, right? That has happened to different people in different chapters. One of the craziest things is when he comes out of it, and I mean he can't even like speak to his friends like he used to, right? Can I go back far enough? Yeah, here it is. Just barely. Shut it, quit squeaking at me like that.
うるさい、黄色い声で話しかけるな。なんだよ。うるさい、黄色い声で話しかけるな。
Like they don't even like they seem to fear Keiichi now, and they're like dude, like that didn't even seem like you, right? They don't know what to think, right? Wow, things have really gone to shit. So I think it's safe to assume that when I hit this continue button tomorrow, or later today, maybe, we'll see. But it will happen. When I hit that continue button, we will probably end up seeing Keiichi attempt to kill Teppei. I don't even know what to say. Like, what else to say, right? I had a feeling things would come to this. This is just horrible. Satoko needs help, but like Keiichi said, if he goes and gets himself arrested for murder, I don't think that's really going to help that much in the long run. It'll free her from her situation, but life won't go back to normal for them. I don't know. I will admit, his method is the most direct, right, at removing his influence from her life, but you just gotta wish there was another way, right? And it seems like the thing is, the Child Consultation Center, like, actually realized, right, like, that this is a real emergency, right? And they might do something, but at this point, for Keiichi, it's too late. It's too late. This episode was phenomenal. So much crazy stuff happened. So much to think about, even. Wow. I can only imagine things are just going to continue to be crazy. I'm really looking forward to this next episode. I think the next episode's probably going to be fantastic. So, presumably, that will be out 3 days after this video comes out, which I think this should be out on the 27th of May, so I guess the next one should be out on the 30th of May. So, I hope you guys are looking forward to that. When that comes out, I'm hoping to see you guys there. Peace.